No one supports you because you are still trying to make unfinished work sound convincing. You keep explaining the vision because some part of you still wants permission to become the man you already know you need to become. But people do not respect seeds, they respect fruit. They do not update their judgment because you describe your ambition better. They update when your output makes their old opinion expensive to keep. The danger is not their doubt. The danger is that every explanation gives you the feeling of progress without the burden of proof. But do not confuse silence with hiding, and do not confuse being misunderstood with being advanced. Sometimes you are not ahead of them. Sometimes you are simply unproven. So stop announcing, start measuring, build a private scoreboard, create a public proof trail. Let results correct the room. Belief is not the requirement. Evidence is. But here is the question most men avoid. Why does explaining your ambition feel so satisfying, even when nothing has changed? Why do you feel cleaner after telling someone your plan, even though the work is still untouched? Why does your chest feel lighter after describing the business, the body, the money, the discipline, the escape, the future, even though your bank account, your skill level, your output, and your daily habits remain exactly where they were yesterday? Because explanation gives you a temporary identity. For a few minutes you feel like the future version of yourself. You are not earning more yet, but you speak like a builder. You are not disciplined yet, but you speak like a man in transformation. You have not created proof yet, but your words allow you to borrow the feeling of proof. That is why over-explaining is so dangerous. It does not feel like weakness while you are doing it. It feels like movement. It feels like seriousness. It feels like commitment. But many times, it is only your ego collecting an emotional reward before reality has paid you. Psychologist Peter Gollwitzer and his colleagues studied what happens when people announce identity-based intentions. Their research found that when others notice your intention, it can create a premature sense of already possessing the identity you want. In plain language, talking can make you feel like you have already become what you have not yet built. That means every time you announce the man you will become, your mind may collect a reward your results have not earned. Every time you explain the empire, the body, the money, the book, the channel, the company, the new life, you may be giving yourself a small taste of victory without passing through the pain that produces victory. And once the ego has tasted the reward, the work feels less urgent. The pressure drops. The hunger weakens. The identity has been verbally borrowed, so the evidence becomes easier to postpone. This is why some men keep explaining. Not because the plan needs more clarity, not because the family needs one more conversation, not because the friends need one more chance to understand, because the ego wants a reward before the work has produced evidence. And Machiavelli would have understood this weakness immediately. He knew that people are moved by appearances, signals, and visible power. He wrote, "Men in general judge more by the eyes than by the hands." People respond to what they can see. They respond to results, symbols, proof, consistency, money, reputation, visible transformation, and public evidence. They do not respond reliably to the invisible fire you claim is inside you. So if the world cannot see your proof, the world discounts your potential. This may feel unfair, but it is one of the oldest laws of power. Hidden value is often treated like non-existent value. Private ambition without public proof does not create leverage. It creates frustration. And the unsupported man cannot afford frustration. He cannot afford to live as a man of speeches. He must become a man of receipts. If you do not understand this, you will lose years. Not because you lack talent, not because you had no ambition, not because your family failed to clap. You will lose years because you kept returning to the same weak transaction, explaining your future to people who only understand your past. Every announcement gives people a chance to judge the seed before it becomes fruit. Every debate gives doubters access to your nervous system. Every argument wastes energy that should have gone into skill, proof, cash, leverage, ownership, distribution, and reputation. And the cost is not just emotional. You lose time, you lose focus, you lose credibility, you lose status. You lose the one thing an unsupported man cannot waste: private execution hours. A man with support can sometimes survive delay. A man with family money can experiment loudly. A man with connections can fail in public and still get invited back into rooms. But the unsupported man has a different law. He does not have unlimited emotional credit. He does not have unlimited social patience. He does not have a room full of people prepared to believe before evidence exists. He must become undeniable before he becomes understandable. That is why this is not about becoming silent out of bitterness. Bitterness is still dependency. Bitterness still keeps the doubter at the center of your emotional life. This is about becoming silent out of strategy. Silence is not retreat when it protects execution. Silence is not weakness when it preserves hunger. Silence is not hiding when it is attached to measurement, output, and proof. Rule 1. Stop presenting seeds to people who only respect fruit. Some people cannot respect the early stage, not because they are evil, because they have no imagination for anything that has not already won. They do not respect the gym membership. They respect the body. They do not respect the business idea. They respect revenue. They do not respect the skill you are learning. They respect the result it produces. They do not respect the nights you suffer in silence. They respect the proof that suffering was converted into power. This is where many ambitious men make a fatal mistake. They bring their seed to people who only understand fruit, then feel betrayed when the seed is mocked. They describe the fragile beginning to people whose entire worldview is built around finished outcomes. They say, "I am building something." The room hears, "He has nothing yet." They say, "I am becoming disciplined." The room hears, "He has failed before." They say, "I have a vision." The room hears, "He wants respect before results." And because the man still wants their belief, their doubt enters him. A small comment becomes a wound. A joke becomes hesitation. A dismissive look becomes evidence that maybe the dream is foolish. But the real problem is not their doubt. The real problem is your decision to present unfinished work to unqualified judges. Sarah Blakely understood this law. Before Spanx became a billion-dollar company, she was selling fax machines door to door. She had no fashion empire. She had no famous investor. She had no massive team. She had pressure. She had a job. She did not want to stay trapped in a product the market did not yet understand, and a future that would not arrive because someone approved of it. So what did she do? She did not spend years trying to make everyone emotionally understand the idea. She saved money. She built the product. She sold. She demonstrated. She pushed her way into rooms where evidence mattered. Her first proof was simple: a product women could see, feel, try, and buy. That is the lesson. When people cannot imagine the fruit, bring them the fruit. Do not demand respect for seeds. The early stage is fragile. If you expose it to people who only respect finished power, they will crush it with small comments. That will not work. Be realistic. Who do you think you are? You have changed. You are wasting time. And because part of you still wants their permission, those words do not remain outside you. They become part of your inner weather. They make the work feel heavier. They make silence feel lonely. They make progress feel embarrassing before it becomes visible. But an unsupported man cannot treat every opinion as equal. He cannot give voting rights to people who do not understand the game, do not carry the risk, do not share the hunger, and do not have the vision to recognize an early signal before it becomes obvious. Stop asking people with no vision to bless the invisible stage. Protect the seed, build the fruit, then let reality speak. But protection is not delusion, and this is where the weak part of you will try to hide. Because once you stop presenting seeds to the wrong people, the next temptation is to call yourself misunderstood every time you are challenged. That is dangerous, because sometimes you are not misunderstood. Sometimes you are simply unproven. Rule 2. Do not confuse being misunderstood with being advanced. This rule will offend the weak part of you, because every ambitious man wants to believe that if people doubt him, it proves he is special. It feels good to imagine that criticism is evidence of greatness. It feels good to believe that nobody understands you because you are too far ahead. It feels good to turn doubt into a badge. But sometimes doubt is not oppression. Sometimes doubt is feedback. Sometimes your plan is vague. Sometimes your skill is average. Sometimes your discipline is inconsistent. Sometimes your idea is not sharp. Sometimes you call yourself misunderstood because admitting you are unproven would force you to work. This is where the unsupported man must become ruthless with himself. Not cruel, ruthless. Because self-pity is expensive, it turns doubt into identity. And once doubt becomes identity, you start needing enemies to explain your lack of output. You need the family to be blind. You need the friends to be jealous. You need society to be unfair. You need the room to be small. You need everyone else to be wrong, because if they are not wrong, then your lack of proof becomes your responsibility. That is the trap. The stronger question is not, why do they not believe in me? The stronger question is, what evidence have I given them? Not emotions. Evidence, not dreams. Evidence, not potential. Evidence. If you claim you are a writer, where are the pages? If you claim you are a businessman, where is the offer? If you claim you are disciplined, where is the scoreboard? If you claim you are becoming wealthy, where is the surplus, the skill, the asset, the investment, the proof? If you claim you are becoming stronger, where is the body, the routine, the sleep, the food, the repetition? If you claim you are serious, where is the calendar that proves seriousness when nobody is watching? Machiavelli's world was not built on intentions. It was built on power that could be seen, defended, and used. Your world is no different. This is not meant to humiliate you. It is meant to free you from fantasy. There is dignity in being unproven when you are honest about it. There is power in saying, I have not produced enough evidence yet, so I will build. But there is weakness in demanding the rewards of proof while still living on the language of potential. The boy wants to be understood before he acts. The man acts until misunderstanding becomes irrelevant. You are not here to be emotionally interpreted. You are here to become undeniable. And if this cuts you, let it cut the right thing. Let it cut the part of you that still wants applause for intention. Let it cut the part of you that confuses rejection with destiny. Let it cut the part of you that wants doubters to validate the identity you have not yet earned. Because the first way to become undeniable is to cut off the cheapest drug in the ambitious man's life. Talking before proof. Rule 3. Speak less before the proof exists. Every time you announce a goal too early, you create a dangerous emotional illusion. You feel witnessed. You feel serious. You feel committed. But nothing has been built. No money has been earned. No skill has been proven. No system has been created. No visible result exists. You received the social reward without the strategic achievement. That is why many men are addicted to declarations. They say, I am starting a business. I am locking in. I am changing my life. I am going monk mode. I am going to become rich. Then the pressure fades. The audience disappears. The old habits return. And now the man has two problems, no result and public embarrassment. So he announces again, a new plan, a new identity, a new fantasy, but the pattern remains. This is false progress. It looks like commitment from the outside, but inside it is often emotional consumption. The man consumes the feeling of becoming without entering the discipline of becoming. He speaks about the mountain because climbing it is slower, lonelier, and less flattering. He announces the transformation because transformation demands boring repetition, and speech gives him drama immediately. Silence protects execution because it removes premature reward. It keeps the ego hungry. It forces the work to produce the feeling. It stops you from confusing attention with progress. Jeff Bezos did not build Amazon by arguing with every person who doubted online retail. He left a powerful job, built in a garage, launched the store, and let early market proof speak. In Amazon's first 4 weeks, the company shipped books to customers in all 50 United States and more than 45 countries. That is proof, not explanation, not debate. Proof. Imagine if he had spent those early fragile months trying to emotionally convince every skeptic that online retail would change the world. He would have burned time defending a future that only execution could make visible. Instead, the proof moved first. The market responded. The signal appeared. The room had to update because reality had created receipts. This is the difference between a man who wants belief and a man who builds evidence. A dangerous man does not need to narrate every move. He lets unfinished work stay private. He lets finished proof travel publicly. And if you are the right man for this work, stop confusing content consumption with construction. You already know the truth. Nobody is coming to give you emotional permission. But your real problem is not lack of information. Your real problem is that you keep collecting ideas that make you feel powerful while your output remains too small to change your position. If you keep consuming without building, you will become a man with refined language and weak evidence. Inside Patreon, you get deeper, unfiltered breakdowns on power, discipline, proof, leverage, and psychological self-command, so you can stop treating ambition like a mood and start turning it into measurable force. This is not for men who want comfort. It is for men who are finished negotiating with their weaker identity. The decision is yours. Now understand this carefully. Silence alone is not enough. A silent man with no measurement is not strategic. He is just hiding. A silent man with no proof is not mysterious. He is invisible. A silent man with no output is not disciplined. He is merely quiet. And that brings us to the private scoreboard. Rule 4. Build a private scoreboard. Most men do not need more emotion. They need numbers. Because numbers humiliate fantasy. Without numbers, your ego can keep editing the story. You can call inconsistency a difficult season. You can call fear patience. You can call avoidance research. You can call distraction recovery. You can call being behind a temporary phase. You can call low output being misunderstood. But the scoreboard removes the poetry. You can tell yourself you are disciplined. The scoreboard shows how many hours you trained. You can tell yourself you are serious about money. The scoreboard shows how much you saved. You can tell yourself you are building a business. The scoreboard shows how many offers you sent. You can tell yourself you are becoming valuable. The scoreboard shows how many projects you shipped. This is why weak men avoid measurement. Measurement removes the drama. Measurement ends the story. Measurement exposes whether your identity has evidence. And that exposure is painful. It is painful to see that you only trained twice this week. It is painful to see that you consumed 10 hours of business content and sent no offer. It is painful to see that you spoke about changing your life but saved nothing. It is painful to see that your ambition exists more in conversation than in calendar entries. But that pain is useful because it is clean. It does not flatter you. It does not insult you. It simply tells you where reality stands. Your private scoreboard should track 5 things. First, skill hours. How many focused hours did you invest in one valuable skill? Second, output. What did you produce that did not exist before? Third, proof. What result can another person verify? Fourth, money. What did you earn, save, invest, or stop wasting? Fifth, exposure. How many times did you place your proof in front of opportunity? This is not complicated, it is just uncomfortable. Because the scoreboard does not care how misunderstood you feel. It asks one question: what did you build? And once you begin answering that question honestly, your identity changes. You stop needing the room to tell you whether you are moving. You stop needing applause to confirm momentum. You stop using emotion as evidence. You become your own witness, not emotionally, but operationally. The unsupported man must become his own witness before the world becomes his audience. He cannot wait for applause to confirm movement. He must measure movement before the world notices. But a private scoreboard is only the foundation. At some point, private discipline must become public proof. Rule 5. Build a public proof trail. Here is where many silent men fail. They become private monsters and public ghosts. They study, they practice, they improve, they suffer, they read, they train, they save, they sacrifice. They become sharper in private, but the world cannot see what they are becoming. Their value remains buried. Then they resent the world for not discovering them. This is not strategy. This is hidden competence. And hidden competence is often treated like non-existent competence. You must understand this clearly. Silence is powerful before the proof exists. But once proof exists, hiding becomes another form of weakness. At the beginning, silence protects the seed. Later, silence can bury the fruit. The unsupported man must learn the difference. There is a time to conceal. There is a time to reveal. If you reveal too early, weak eyes damage the work. If you reveal too late, opportunity never sees the work. This is why strategy matters. You are not here to become a ghost. You are here to become difficult to ignore. Machiavelli understood that perception is not decoration. It is power. The world responds first to signals, then to substance. Substance matters, but if no one can perceive it, it cannot influence their judgment. People cannot hire what they cannot evaluate. They cannot refer what they cannot explain. They cannot respect what they cannot see. They cannot pay for value that never enters their field of vision. This is where many men become bitter. They say, "I work hard, but nobody notices." But hard work does not automatically become leverage. Work must be transformed into proof. Proof must be transformed into signal. Signal must be placed where opportunity can see it. The market does not reward your private suffering. The room does not update because you struggled quietly. The world does not owe you recognition because you endured pain. Pain becomes power only when it is converted into skill, output, evidence, reputation, and leverage. A public proof trail is not begging for attention. It is controlled evidence. Post the case study. Show the result. Publish the project. Document the transformation. Share the lesson. Build the portfolio. Collect the testimonial. Display the before and after. Create a visible record of competence that grows while other men are still explaining themselves. But do not misunderstand this. A public proof trail is not performance without substance. It is not pretending to be powerful. It is not posting empty declarations. It is not announcing that you are working. It is showing what the work produced. There is a difference between saying, "I am building a business," and showing the offer you created. There is a difference between saying, "I am getting disciplined," and showing the body, the routine, the numbers, the transformation. There is a difference between saying, "I am learning a skill," and publishing the project, the result, the before and after, the client outcome, the finished work. The rule is simple. Do not show the seed to weak eyes. But once you have fruit, place it where opportunity can see. This is how unknown men begin to create gravity. First they build in private, then they reveal selectively, then proof compounds. One project becomes a portfolio, one result becomes a case study, one transformation becomes credibility, one visible skill becomes a reason for someone to call, pay, refer, hire, partner, or respect. You are not trying to be famous. You are trying to become legible to power. That phrase matters, legible to power. It means the people, markets, rooms, clients, employers, collaborators, and opportunities that can change your life must be able to understand your value without needing a long emotional explanation. If your value requires 10 minutes of defending, it is not positioned well enough yet. If your ambition requires constant explanation, it does not have enough proof yet. If your competence is invisible, the world will often treat you as average, even if you are not average. This is not injustice. This is mechanism. The world is crowded. Attention is scarce. Trust is expensive. People are cautious with money, reputation, time, and opportunity. They do not want to guess whether you are serious. They do not want to interpret your potential. They do not want to emotionally invest in a man who has not made his seriousness visible. So make it visible. Do not ask for a room to believe. Build a trail so clear that disbelief becomes harder to maintain. The private scoreboard creates self-command. The public proof trail creates social leverage. You need both. A private scoreboard without a public proof trail can make you disciplined but invisible. A public proof trail without a private scoreboard can make you performative and hollow. The unsupported man cannot afford either error. He must build privately with precision, then reveal publicly with strategy. But even when proof becomes visible, the old room may still resist. That is when you learn the next rule. Rule 6. Let results update the room. The goal is not revenge. Revenge keeps you emotionally chained to the people who doubted you. If your entire ambition is built around making them regret it, then they are still the center. Their disbelief still owns your nervous system. Their old judgment still decides your emotional weather. You may look disciplined, but underneath, you are still negotiating with ghosts. The goal is not revenge. The goal is correction. The room has an old version of you in its mind. Family remembers your past. Friends remember your old habits. Co-workers remember your current rank. Society sees your present signals. People are not judging the man you imagine. They are judging the man they have evidence for. This is painful but useful. Most people do not update quickly. They cling to old versions because old versions stabilize the hierarchy. If they saw you as the unfocused one, the dependent one, the broke one, the emotional one, the inconsistent one, the dreamer, the talker, the man who always said he would change and then return to the same pattern, then your growth threatens more than their opinion. It threatens the role you played in their mind. If you rise, they must adjust. Some will admire it. Some will resent it. Some will pretend they always knew. Some will become quiet. Some will test you harder. Some will bring up your past because your present makes them uncomfortable. Some will call your discipline arrogance. Some will call your silence distance. Some will call your focus obsession. Some will call your proof luck. None of that matters. Their reaction is not your scoreboard. Your job is not to argue the old version out of their memory. Your job is to make the old version inaccurate. That happens through repeated visible proof. Not one lucky win. Not one dramatic post. Not 1 week of discipline. Repeated proof. A man changes his body, and at first they joke. Then the jokes weaken. Then they ask what he is doing. Then they act like they supported him from the beginning. A man changes his money, and at first they lecture him. Then they question him. Then they become quiet. Then they ask for advice. A man changes his skill, and at first they dismiss the work as a hobby. Then the work produces results. Then the results produce opportunities. Then the same people who ignored it call it talent. A man changes his reputation, and at first the old room still sees the old identity. Then enough outside signals arrive that the old room can no longer pretend nothing changed. This is how results update the room. Slowly, repeatedly, publicly enough to be undeniable. When the body changes, jokes die. When the money changes, lectures fade. When the skill becomes visible, dismissal becomes harder. When the reputation grows, old labels lose force. When the offer sells, the fantasy accusation collapses. You do not need to defeat every doubter. You need to make their opinion outdated. That is power. Not shouting louder, not explaining better, not emotionally proving that you were always special. Power is when reality begins to carry the argument for you and understand something else. Some people do not want proof because proof forces accountability. If you stay weak, their judgment feels safe. If you stay dependent, their advice feels superior. If you stay inconsistent, their doubt feels justified. But if you become disciplined, skilled, valuable, and hard to dismiss, they must confront the possibility that their old judgment was not wisdom. It was convenience. Do not expect everyone to celebrate that. The unsupported man must be prepared for a strange loneliness. Not only the loneliness of being doubted before proof, but the loneliness of being resisted after proof. Some people can tolerate your ambition when it is only language. They become uncomfortable when it starts changing your position. That is why you cannot build your emotional engine around their approval. If they doubt you, build. If they mock you, build. If they ignore you, build. If they return after the proof, stay calm. If they never return, stay calm. Your mission is not to make every person clap. Your mission is to create a life so structurally strong that clapping is no longer required. Stop trying to win arguments with people who benefit from your weakness. Win the scoreboard. Let the room adjust or expose itself. But there is one final replacement you must make. Because even after you stop explaining, even after you build privately, even after you show proof publicly, the old addiction can return in a more subtle form. You may stop asking for support, but still check whether they noticed. You may stop announcing, but still crave their reaction. You may stop debating, but still measure your worth by whether the room has updated. That is not freedom yet. That is a more sophisticated form of dependence. So the final rule is this. Rule 7. Replace validation with verification. Validation asks, do they believe in me? Verification asks, what evidence did I create? Validation asks, did they approve? Verification asks, did the market respond? Validation asks, do they understand my ambition? Verification asks, did my behavior prove it? Validation keeps you emotionally dependent. Verification makes you operationally dangerous. This is where the unsupported man finally becomes free. Not because nobody's opinion matters. That is childish. Opinions can matter when they come from reality. Markets, mentors, customers, serious operators, honest critics, or people with skin in the game. But random doubt from people who do not understand your path cannot remain the engine. Approval from people who benefit from your hesitation cannot remain the fuel. Emotional confirmation from people who only know your old identity cannot remain the judge. Evidence must become the judge. Verification is not a productivity habit. It is the death of permission. The moment you stop asking, "Do they believe in me?" and start asking, "What did reality confirm this week?" you remove power from the room and return it to the work. Every week, ask 7 verification questions. What did I build? What did I finish? What did I measure? What did I publish? What did I sell? What did I save? What did I learn from reality? These questions remove the fantasy. They turn ambition into contact with the real world. And the real world is the only judge that can make you stronger. This is why verification is colder than motivation. Motivation asks how you feel. Verification asks what exists. Motivation can rise and disappear. Verification remains. Motivation can make a weak man feel heroic. Verification forces him to produce evidence. If you built nothing, verification says so. If you finish nothing, verification says so. If you publish nothing, verification says so. If you sold nothing, verification says so. If you saved nothing, verification says so. If you learned nothing from reality, verification says so. That sounds harsh, but it is mercy. Because a man who verifies himself weekly cannot remain delusional for years. He may be behind, but he will know where. He may be weak, but he will know how. He may be unproven, but he will know what proof must be built next. The most dangerous man is not the man who feels supported. It is the man who no longer needs emotional support to execute. He can appreciate support without depending on it. He can receive encouragement without becoming soft. He can hear doubt without becoming paralyzed. He can hear praise without becoming addicted. He can measure himself when nobody sees. He can build proof when nobody claps. He can reveal evidence when strategy demands it. He can let the room update without begging the room to update. This is self-command. And self-command is the beginning of sovereignty. Machiavelli's most useful lesson for the unsupported man is not cruelty. It is reliance on what is in your control, not their belief. Your evidence, not their support. Your system, not their approval. Your proof. If you are the kind of man who has already outgrown empty motivation, stop using insight as false progress. You already know that explanation is not execution. But your real problem is that private clarity still has not become public proof. If you keep studying power without building evidence, you will become a spectator of strength, not an owner of it. Inside Patreon, you get deeper, unfiltered work on discipline, leverage, reputation, emotional control, and proof building. So you can convert isolation into structure, structure into skill, and skill into visible power. This is not for men who want to be entertained by harsh truths. It is for men who intend to be changed by them. The decision is yours. To the central law. The unsupported man does not need more explanations. He needs evidence. He does not need to be understood before he moves. He needs to move until understanding becomes unnecessary. He does not need to announce a new identity. He needs to produce the proof that kills the old one. So now the question is not, why does no one support me? That question is too weak. The real question is, what part of your life still depends on being believed? Your business, your discipline, your money, your body, your skill, your future, your identity? Pick one. Do not pick the easiest one. Pick the one where you still want applause before proof. Pick the one where you keep explaining because action would expose you. Pick the one where your words have become a substitute for receipts. Pick the one where you are tired of being doubted but still have not produced enough evidence to make doubt expensive. Then stop explaining it. Build a private scoreboard. Create a public proof trail. Let results correct the room. Replace validation with verification. And when the old need rises again, the need to be praised, understood, supported, and emotionally confirmed, do not hate that part of yourself. Recognize it. Then command it. That need is not evil, it is human. But if it governs you, it will make you weak. If it becomes your engine, you will keep returning to people who cannot give you what only evidence can create. Support is useful. Proof is sovereign. Encouragement is useful. Proof is sovereign. Belief is pleasant. Proof is sovereign. And once you understand this, abandonment changes meaning. No support is no longer proof that you cannot win. It is proof that you cannot afford to remain dependent on belief. It forces you to become precise. It forces you to measure. It forces you to build. It forces you to stop hiding behind speeches and start producing evidence strong enough to survive weak eyes. But understand the next battle. Once your proof begins to rise, the old room will resist losing the old version of you. They will test whether your discipline is real. They will pull you back into old conversations, old habits, old guilt, old roles, old expectations. They will remind you who you were because who you are becoming threatens the comfort of who they knew. That is when your silence must become stronger. Not empty silence, measured silence, operational silence. The silence of a man who no longer negotiates with the past. So do not ask to be believed. Do not ask to be rescued. Do not ask to be interpreted. Do not ask weak eyes to validate invisible work. Build until disbelief becomes expensive. Build until the old version becomes impossible to defend. Build until your scoreboard proves what your mouth no longer needs to say. And if this is the line that ends the old pattern, write it where your weaker self can see it. Stop explaining. Build anyway.